All right. Welcome to the program. We have Eric from, sorry, well, let me start over. Eric Gruber. Uh, anyway, welcome to the program. Eric, thanks for joining me today. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and what we're going to talk about today, which is buyer intent and how that's used in account-based marketing?
Yes, as Jason you just said, I'm Eric Gruber, CEO of Personal ABM, where we focus not just on getting account-based awareness, account-based lead gen, which most ABM programs have become, but we're focusing on the human buyers within the accounts we want to win, protect, and expand, and help the clients get to revenue. Because that's what marketing should be about. It's how are we going to influence and impact the complete buyer's journey and the customer life cycle, instead of just the pipeline, which is, and I just did a poll on this on LinkedIn, and 60% of marketers said their primary metric is pipeline KPIs and marketing sourced revenue, which means they're only impacting a very small part of that buying journey and wanting credit. That's what it comes to me. It's they're not maximizing their value of what marketing should be doing.
That's a really interesting distinction, and starting to hear that more. I liken it to David Ogilvy's quote, which is advertising is selling in print. And if you think of a lot of the activities that we're doing in B2B as marketers, we're actually doing selling from a marketing perspective, right? We're trying to generate leads, we're trying to develop conversations, but that's a little bit different than driving demand. Would you agree?
Yes. Yep. Driving demand to me is driving the change. It's driving change within status quo accounts. And I know we're going to talk about buyer intent, but that's a small portion of the market. You have 60% of the market that is not showing intent. They are disengaged and they're stuck. And the reason they're stuck is no one has given them a relevant reason for change. And that's where, to me, greenfield. Because if you're in market, and there's ways that we got to engage with the in-market accounts, but if they're in market, they're looking at the competition as well, which means you may have smaller sales cycle time, but you also have smaller margins. You are reacting to their predefined needs versus creating the buying vision. And so, yeah, to me, marketing, we need to drive demand. We need to create the revenue. We need to drive it along the complete journey, whether in market or they're stuck right now.
So you said a lot to unpack there. So let me start with buyer intent. For those that don't understand what's going on or what salespeople are getting so excited around third-party buyer intent, could you define what buyer intent is, how it's been used kind of in our own websites? Like, for example, like inbound is buyer intent to a large degree. Advertising is actually a form of buyer intent. If I type something in Google, or if I'm trying to maximize keywords, that's maximizing kind of buyer intent. And now we've got third-party buyer intent tools. So could you talk a little bit about where you see the market going and how that's appropriate for sales and marketing organizations?
Yeah, buyer intent signals that I could potentially be in the market for a new solution, or I have a pain point, or I'm looking at your competitors. It is, I mean, you have many forms. You have 6 Sense, you have Bombora, that's looking at the search data or what events people may be going to. You have the third party. You have Path Factory, which looks at content consumption as intent data. What are they actually consuming? But it's, to me, that data should be a springboard. A lot of times companies come into play and sales teams just respond, oh, they're searching for X topic. So let's just keep pushing out content to them in this topic. They're not thinking about their personal buying journey. Why is that prospect really looking? Why is their intent in the first place? So then we could align ourselves with their business vision. That's what's missing, because there's a lot of times now we're using intent data, finding these in-market accounts or accounts that may be in market, but we're reacting to it and we're responding the same way that we do everything else, any other type of marketing, and it's just a lot of pushing out. So still, while it's more targeted, it's still push out content, spray and pray. So it's not really getting that customer alignment that you talked about it. And we talked about before the podcast. I need to align with those customers, be envisioned with their needs, really respond to them versus reacting to what they're searching for, see and define my value prop by their needs. I am creating content for them specifically and my messaging to adjust to them. So I could talk about their gaps, their impacts. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, you've given me a lot to unpack there. I was wondering, can you give me maybe a specific example of what that looks like in practice? What I hear you talking about is similar to the book Strategic Selling, right? Back in the 80s and 90s. You know, if you're selling a complex deal, it was really up to salespeople to go in and find who your champions are and find, how to move that deal forward based on all of the different constituencies that might be involved in that deal. And that's really what we're talking about with ABM, right?
Yep. Well, that's ABM. I sometimes talk about strategic selling. I'll talk also about challenger sale. To me, marketing, if I want to get to revenue, and that's our key point, I need to align marketing with sales processes. Our content needs to speak to the conversations that sales needs to have with target accounts. So if I was, first of all, when reacting to intent data or any other account, a lot of times sales and marketing will treat every opportunity the same. A lot of times they'll come in, okay, this is showing in market, or they're engaging with our content here. They're coming inbound to us. So let's just give them this content. Let's give these set of cadences of LinkedIn invites, LinkedIn nurtures, emails, phone calls. So we have a list of activities and we're treating every account the same versus really segmenting your ICP accounts, ideal customer profile, to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. With my tier 1, I want to get personal. I want to look at each interaction, every experience that we're delivering. So profiles speak to those specific accounts. Content speaks to their gaps and their impacts. What are they not considering versus pain points? Because what's painful to me, it's not going to be, as a 10, it's not going to be the same pain to you. It might be a 1. You have a list of other priorities. So I want to align with where are they going in their business? What do they want? Where are the gaps that's going to impact that business vision that we can fill? That's where we want to go in and show we understand their business through our content, through our profiles, through our messaging. As we have conversations, as sales engages with buyers on LinkedIn and starts to have their conversations, now I need to start to understand from them, from the insights. What are the insights that the buyers are giving? How can we now create content to drive that buying consensus? Because as I said, ABM is about getting accounts to revenue, not accounts to the pipeline. So I need to influence both selling conversations and internal conversations that sales is not privy part to. And that's how I start to really show how gaps are impacting each division: sales, operations, customers, revenue. So each division, each impact, because that strategic priority, it comes down to each division. Each division is going to be aligned with that. So we need to show how they're going to be impacted by their gaps. That is what is missing. So we need to create that consensus and start to multi-thread. It is not just responding to the persona pain points and pushing out content and campaigns. ABM should not be about campaigns. It is about interactions. It is about how are we going to move accounts to revenue? And that's where everyone keeps getting stuck. It's getting accounts to pipeline. Well, that's not what ABM should be about. That's not what intent signals are not about. It's not about I'm just reacting to those in market. I want to make sure I get those in market accounts to actually move forward in our direction, not to the competitors.
Well, I think what you said there is what I've been talking about a lot between the difference of demand generation versus lead generation. So if you're talking about, getting accounts to revenue as opposed to into the pipeline, that's really the distinction. Like lead generation is about getting people into the pipeline where we're talking to specific pain points and things like that. But if you think bigger about demand generation, how are we actually helping move the buyer toward revenue, whatever that looks like? And it's a much different type of content than when you're trying to just generate a short-term lead.
Yep. And to do that, we need to go beyond the tools. 6 Sense, Bombor, they're all tools. They provide intent data, but it's how we use the data. It's how do we align with those in-market accounts versus just reacting to it. Just like I said for a long time, ABM has become synonymous with demand base, Terminus, and all those other ABM programs, but it's become campaign, whereas nothing more than account-based advertising. What we don't have is a strategy. It's a strategy on how we're going to create that engagement across all channels, including LinkedIn, where you could build a one-on-one relationship with key buyers. It's making sure that we are able to get those accounts to revenue, but existing accounts to greater revenue growth. It is about changing sales motions and customer success team motions so we win with those in-market accounts versus just get them in our pipeline. How are we going to get sales teams to reframe prospects' thoughts or ideas? A lot of times it's based on your content. But content, and I know we talked about this on our podcast when you were as a guest, most content is thought leadership, lead gen. I'm just pushing out there on topics, but it doesn't have the emotional stories to build a connection with the target accounts because we're just creating a push out versus intention. I know what accounts are in market. I see which ones are tier ones that we need to win. Now let's put a plan in place. Let's put the content that would be relevant to them. Let's reframe their specific thoughts or ideas. Challenge is about reframing the prospects' thoughts. It's about challenging them. But most content do not have reframes. It doesn't have commercial insights. So it's about having one process, putting it together where sales and marketing win. And they are winning with those tier one accounts by coming together as one team, where we are making calculated moves together. It's not just I'm creating content. It's not just pushing out messaging. It's each interaction, each experience that we're having. It is a calculated move by both sales and marketing.
So a lot of companies, it sounds like, get stuck in the age-old problem where they buy the technology before they really have a strategy in place or really understand what they're doing with ABM in the first place. Would you agree?
Yep, I buy the Bombor, the 6 Sense, Intensify, and then and I know you talk about this, a lot of times you talk about retrofitting inbound. I'm putting our inbound into existing process. Well, they're doing the same thing when it comes to intent data. Oh, now we know what accounts are in market. So let's just put this into current infrastructure and processes. Oh, let's get demand base and where we could do emails and retargeted advertising to these target accounts and see what they're engaging with and put it into existing processes. So then instead of retrofitting, to me, we need to change management. We need to change how we are working, how sales and marketing teams work together. Because again, it's about getting accounts to revenue. We need to drive some kind of change. Because a lot of times we have these issues of accounts, they'll build a pipeline, but they're not moving through the different stages, stage progression. I've talked to clients and they'll get they'll get people into the pipeline, but then from stage 0 to close, there's a 5 to 10% win rate. They are losing opportunities. And it's because we're not looking at that whole journey. They're not putting a strategy in place on how we work together, sales and marketing, to get those accounts to revenue. They are not looking at each interaction. They're looking at a campaign. Oh, can we get 2% conversions more? Oh, we got 20% conversions. Can we get 2% more? Well, I'm not looking at the 20% that converted. I'm thinking about the 80% that didn't convert in that campaign. How many of that is your tier 1 accounts that if we change the interactions, we change the experience, if we became more relevant to them, what can we do? Buyers do not move forward because they do not see themselves inside the story that's being told. And it's because we're reacting to what they're searching for and reacting to intent data versus understanding the accounts. And that's sales and marketing, but we need to bring it together. We both need to understand so we could put a plan, so we could put the content and create the experiences that's needed.
So I think about this on a small scale, like I'm a small company, work very closely with the president of our agency. And if we see somebody that is demonstrating some buyer intent, whatever that looks like, then, he and I usually talk about how we want to get in front of that client. What's the best way to do that? And I think it sounds like what you're talking about is that on a larger scale, like how do we really look at each one of these accounts that have demonstrated buyer intent and really figure out a strategy about what makes the most sense to try to get in front of them instead of deferring to, campaigns like advertising that we've known in the past, right?
For tier 1 accounts.
Yeah. It's like creating a playbook, for each account.
Yep, for tier 1 accounts. So it's not scalable. But if I improve those interactions with your tier 1 accounts, you're automatically going to bring greater revenue growth. Because remember, your tier 1 accounts are the ones that will matter the most to your bottom line. Those are the ones you're going to be able to build a customer, not just an opportunity, not just transaction and money now, but it's a customer that I'm going to be able to create further revenue growth after the sale. I am going to want to expand within that account. So where's your tier 1 accounts? I take those lessons and I apply them to my tier 2 and tier 3 because I'm going to look at each interaction, each experience of my tier 1 accounts. I'm going to learn so much more than just by looking at campaigns that I'm pushing out. Each piece of content, each interaction is going to have that intention. So I'm going to learn from what did that exactly do? How did it shift the customer conversation? Whether it's in their mind, whether it was with sales, what happened? I'm going to be able to see. And I'm going to be closely aligned because it's no longer about pain points. It's about gaps and their impact. I'm going to be able to get so much more relevant in the campaigns itself. So that's how you scale it, is focus on the ones that matter the most. Apply the lessons, and then I'm going to put a strategy in place for tier 2 and 3 accounts. That's why I say we can't just take the data, get the intent data, push it out to sales, and we just do these cadences of LinkedIn messages, emails, because we're just pushing out again. We're not getting the relevance. We're not seeing what's working, why it's working. The why is very important. And to me, we need to know why something is working. We need to know why it's working with the account. Why is it something happening? Why was their intent? That why is the most important piece that sales and marketing are not focused on.
So can you give me some tactics that you use to find that out, to find that information? Like, what does that look like when we're really trying to find out the why behind the intent?
Number one, looking at LinkedIn profiles. What is going on there? What are the people talking about? Most profiles are resumes. They're not like my clients that the profiles speak to target accounts where it's about gaps and impacts and it's about their impact on their prospects. Most profiles are resumes. So they're telling you a lot of times what their wants are. I can see if there's growth in marketing or sales or in operations. Something must be happening if I'm seeing a lot of new people in a specific area. I can start looking at the news. Are they coming out with new products, solutions? Did they just get growth funding? A lot of times when they get funding, they're talking about their priorities. See what their leadership is talking about within articles. It's really getting that complete understanding before I put a plan in place. And that's where marketing should come in place, because it's about qualifying, disqualifying accounts. It is about getting them ready for sales, but we need to understand what is that messaging? What do the interactions need to be? How can we be relevant to them? This is something that we're not taking the time to do, because it's just about, let's get them in this campaign. And maybe they'll engage with us versus, all right, this is a tier 1 account. This is the account we need. Let's create the experience that's going to make sure they get to revenue. Or, because intent data, it's not only for finding accounts that are in market for you now, your services now, it's also a great identifier for existing accounts. Are they starting to search elsewhere? Are they looking for other opportunities that may not be covered by the customer success teams, that we didn't know that there's additional areas for growth? Well, how can we now make sure that that account that may be at risk sees your impact? A lot of times customer success teams talk about, here's the activities completed, here's your benefits, the same conversation that sales had in the beginning, just in a different tense, where we lose that engagement in the VPs. So how do we know, can make sure that they understand the impact you had and why they shouldn't be looking elsewhere? How are we going to help them understand, or how are we going to show that we understand where they are looking to go with their business, and how we may need to evolve our program, which can include those areas that they were looking at? That is where I mean, it's about how we're going to get revenue growth from new and existing accounts. Intent shows us what people are doing. It shows us they're in market for a new solution. It shows that they're looking. It shows if there are other opportunities that they may be thinking about internally. But that is it. We need to dig further and create those personal experiences.
All right, last question for you, and it's a big one. So let me give you the scenario. So you are a new CMO that is stepping into somewhat of a turnaround. The sales pipeline needs to be filled. They've traditionally done lead generation in the past. They want to move toward ABM, but they're really stuck in processes of the past. What do you recommend, or how should they move forward with shifting that company to move toward revenue as opposed to lead gen?
First, look for business challenges. ABM is a business strategy. You have those ABM tools, and like you have intent data tools, but ABM is a business strategy. So I need to see where the business challenges are. In most cases, it is not getting accounts into the pipeline. A lot of companies have Zoom info. They have intent data platforms, as we were talking about, so they can see those accounts. The problem is not getting them into the pipeline. The problem is stage progression. So where are we losing accounts? It is sales cycle time. Talk to accounts that, I'm going to talk to CMOs where they would mention how they have selling conversations going on with Walmart, MasterCard. It's been 14 months. They're still not close to a deal. They say how they need closes, which might be true. But to me, marketing hasn't impacted that complete sales cycle. They're not impacting those internal buying discussions to bring accounts forward. So it's not just a sales issue, it's a marketing issue. Are we, there's issues with the deal sizes? Are we constantly getting lower margins? Are we having to discount? Are we having challenges with larger companies that would require larger deal sizes? Are they consistently going to the competitor, which might be a safe bet? What are the win rates? What is the retention like? I've had clients or bringing on clients where they initially wanted to focus on new accounts, acquisition, but they have so many accounts in the red. When we started looking at what's going on in the business, so many accounts in the red. So it doesn't matter how many accounts we bring in, they're constantly buying churn, which means every time they bring in, just to replace another one. So our services are to replace existing clients. It is not getting to revenue growth, the long-term growth they need. They need to be, they need an ABM to fix the existing accounts. What about driving expansion? Are we having accounts where we're in one division and there might be 5 to 10 divisions that we could penetrate, but we're challenged. So it's really looking at those business issues and understanding why there might be issues. That's the first step, because then I can start putting plans in place. I can start showing, here's the processes that aren't working and why they're not working. Because remember, the first thing for ABM to work is change management. So we need to see and really dig to why it's not working in a way that business will understand, the CFO will understand, and the marketing team and sales will understand. We got to show them. Then I can start putting new processes in place and strategies to fix different KPIs at a time. So I am winning one time. If I want to focus on stage progression, well, that's my first KPI. I'm going to make sure that I'm moving tier 1 accounts forward, that are coming from intent data, that are coming from different areas, that we're actually moving them forward and then not getting stuck. That's where I want to first impact. Then I could add on more, but it's really focusing on those business challenges and then build a strategy to fix those challenges, get the technology to support the strategy, not the other way around as we talked about. It's strategy, get the technology, put the process in place, and then put an account plan in place for those tier 1 accounts, because it's going to be optimized over time. There's a lot of static sales playbooks, which means we're treating all accounts the same. We got to really become customer obsessed. And I got to be aligned with where they're looking to go, which means messaging, content, positioning. I need that account plan for sales and marketing teams to work together. And that's how I'd say it's really understand those business challenges.
Really a fantastic answer. I want to thank you for joining me today and give you an opportunity to talk about how people can get in touch with you, why they should get in touch with you, what are the triggers that looking for in their own organizations that might say, hey, we need to reach out to Personal ABM.
Sure. Well, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Eric Ribburn. That's Eric with a C. Or you can also reach out to my partner, Christina, Kristina, Jaramillo, Jaramillo on LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. You could listen to our podcast. It's the Stop the Sales Drop podcast. You can go to stopthesalesdrop.com. you can sign up for our webinar on why 2/3 of ABM programs underperform. You can go to personal-ABM.com/y-ABM-fail-webinar, and you will see exactly why the ABM programs don't fail. And in most cases, it's because they are not aligning with the customers. They're taking that campaign approach, and it's just marketing as usual. You want to reach out to us if you're looking to change how marketing and sales moves forward together. If you really want revenue growth and not doing the same old motions that's already being done. So if you're looking to go beyond MQLs, if you're looking to go beyond just the pipeline and really focusing on how are we going to drive revenue growth, that's where we come into play. We work with those accounts that are unresponsive to sales and marketing efforts. We've created $2 million wins with accounts that were not responsive to sales and marketing for 5+ years. And they were unresponsive because sales and marketing was not relevant to their needs. We worked with accounts, we protected accounts like P&G from going to a larger national competitor. We made sure that we drove expansion because we aligned sales, marketing, but also product teams to actually deliver what accounts needed. That to me is what ABM is, really bringing all those teams together and driving together a strategy to get revenue growth. So Jason, I want to thank you very much for this time.
Yeah, thank you again, and look forward to further conversations.